I'm going to demonstrate how I did one of the black and white composite images in this video. I put together three of them. I'm going to do a demo for this one, and this one actually has some masking on it, which is not a requirement. It's just something that those of you who want to be a little bit more advanced can do. But the three that I did, and these really, I just put very, very little thought into. You can, work as much as you want on these, but I really want to move quickly on this. And so what I first of all did was I had decided that I thought this was an interesting background. I felt like it was going to work pretty well with several of the subjects that I chose, and I didn't know, which picture I wanted to put it with yet. And so I actually brought all three pictures in, or well, I brought all three pictures in and tried them all, before I decided which one I liked the best. And so that's always something that you can, do is, just make multiple layers and turn them on and turn them off. But what I would recommend when you do that is, after you've made up your mind, throw the other layers away if you're sure you don't want them, because they really, really increase the file size. But so here is, let's see, I just want to, what did I decide to do on this one? Okay, so the only layer that has a blending mode on it is the background, which is actually on the top. And if you hit the little drop down box right here, you can read in your book about all the different definitions and technical reasons why this blending mode and that blending mode does this or that. I've been working with Photoshop for a long time, and none of them really make very much sense to me at all. I tend to be a lot more intuitive. I just go through the list and try them all. I kind of know more or less what some of them are going to look like. So I know this group here, if I don't want to darken it, then I just kind of stay away from it. This group right here tends to lighten. There's lighten, screen, color dodge. Some of these turn out very, very harsh. Overlay is one that you might use a lot for effects. It's probably one of the most used blending modes right here. Some of these will look really terrible. Linear light usually looks bad. It didn't look too bad that time. And then these ones down here at the bottom are the ones that look all weird. These are the ones that give you these, really funky effects. And, I recommend using these with caution. And then also don't forget that you have an opacity slider right here. So, not only do you have the effect of placing, the one layer over top of the other layer and having the blending mode create opacity, transparency changes, but you can also do this opacity slider to make your results more subtle, if you like. And I think, didn't I say I went with screen on that last one? I'm not really sure which one I went with, but I think I liked it better at 100%, whatever it was. But anyhow, so this one I went with one of the funkier. Yeah, I went with difference on this one. Let me turn that layer off for a second. So I thought that this, this is just some, guy that was kind of dancing in the streets on the strip one night, and I was playing around with it, and something happened. This was just kind of happenstance. And I liked it. I had no idea that it was going to occur, but one of the lights kind of lined up with his eye and made it look really, really crazy. And I had no idea that was going to happen, and I kind of liked it. So I kind of stuck with it. Similarly on this one, whatever whatever mode I had decided to go with, I liked the fact that one of these lights kind of framed her eye a little bit, and it looked like she was, looking through a hole of some kind. And so I thought that was kind of cool. And these are the kind of things that you just can't really plan for. They just kind of happen. But let's see, I'm going to close this one out. Okay, and I'm going to close this one out. Okay, and I'm going to just recreate this one for you. Okay, so the blending mode I went with was screen on this one. So, I put her in the foreground, and then I, used that same background, but you can see that there's some ghost-like areas here where I've masked a few things out, and you don't have to use this this tool if you don't want, but it is something that's available to you if you want to try it. So here's the background that I used, and let's see, which one was the foreground? I think it was this one. No. Was this one? Okay. So there's a couple of different ways that you can get one file into the other file. One thing you can do is just select the whole thing and copy it to your clipboard, and then come over to the other file. I'm sorry, my computer is like really, really running slow today, and paste it. Okay, that's that's one way to do it. To me, that kind of makes the most sense. But there's a shortcut way that you can also do it now. That you may or may not like doing it this way. I think it can be confusing if you have a lot of tabs open. But if you use your move tool, this is your move tool. It's kind of similar to like your black arrow in Illustrator. If you click the picture, grab it, keep your mouse button pushed down, touch the tab on the picture that you want to take it to. Do not let go of your mouse button until you've moved your cursor back to the middle of that picture, and then let go. It will appear. It really doesn't matter how you do it. I guess if I copied and pasted it, it put it in the right place. The only thing with copy paste is that it is using up more memory because it's copying something to your clipboard that it has to remember. And I think it stays there until you copy something else. So if you can get comfortable with doing it the second way I just showed you, that might be best. Okay, now if you remember in my other one, let's see, what was that one? Was it this one? If you remember in my other one, I have the background on top, okay? And this one, I have the girl on top. You can see that the background, I put her on top of the background. It doesn't really matter. I think you're going to want to try it every way. But I'm finding with this particular one, you're going to get a slightly different result depending on which one is on top. Whichever one is on the bottom, leave the blending mode as normal. But right now I want to put the background on top of layer 1, but you can see it won't let me. Okay, the background is locked. What happens is whenever you open up an image, that's already a photograph that exists, it automatically regards that image, that photograph as the background, no matter what other layers you add to it. If you want to turn this into a layer that you can do the same things with, move it around or whatever, all you have to do, see there's a little padlock on it saying you can't do anything with this background, you're stuck with it the way it is. All you have to do is double click where it says background, and it's going to bring up a little box that if you so desire, you can rename it. I'm going to be lazy and not rename it. And now I can move it, and I can drag it over the top. this is just a regular layer like any other layer. It can move around. So that's all you need to do, okay? So I think what I liked the best was with this one on the top, and I think I had gone with screen. Yeah, so let's say I liked this one the best, but there's a couple of things that I'm not liking about this that I would like to change, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Whoops, other way, click, click, okay. There's a couple of things that I'm not happy with that I can change, and I zoomed out because I'm going to be changing the scale a little bit. One thing that I don't really want in the picture is whatever this thing is here. It doesn't need to be there. And I can change the scale of this picture and, essentially make the picture larger so that this part no longer shows. And the way to do that is to transform it, okay? Now in your edit menu, you have a option called transform, and you can do that, but you need to get used to your shortcuts, and you're going to be using this one so much that this one needs to be just kind of burned into your memory. Command T on a Mac, and I think I'm not sure what it is on a PC, the equivalent, but it should say in your book. And you will get this box. You should recognize this. It looks just like the box that we had whenever we would select an object in Illustrator. And just like in Illustrator, if you don't want to distort the picture, which of course you don't, you hold the Shift key and you grab a corner and drag, okay? And what I did was I'm just scaling it up a little bit. It's kind of slow because I've got a really old computer here, that's why. Okay. And I can even move it around a little bit. What I'm doing right now is I'm called nudging it. If you look at the arrow keys on your keyboard, if you want to move a layer or something that you've selected 1 pixel at a time for, kind of tight editing, you can do that. And so if you wanted to get all fussy with it, I'm getting fussy right now. And so, okay, let's just say I'm happy with it like this. Now, as long as I have this box around it, I can't do anything. I have to accept this transformation, or what's called apply transformation. You've got these options up here. One, I can keep what I just did by clicking this right here, the little checkbox, commit to the transformation. But what if I screwed up? I can cancel it. I can click that and it goes back to where it was. I call that the no smoking sign. But I did actually like what I had, so let me put it back. And I can click the little check mark, and there it's making the transformation. Now my little box with the handles are gone, and I've changed the look of it a little bit. I'm going to zoom in, and one more thing I want to do, I really wish that I like what I see here, but I really wish I could see a little bit more of her face. I think that there's a little bit too much of the light showing on her face. If I try to take the opacity down on the whole layer, okay, I can see her face better, but I think I'm losing a lot of interest on the, outside of her face. And so what I want to do is selectively make it a little bit more transparent just in a few areas and leave it alone in the rest of it. And so that is where we're going to do what's called a mask, a layer mask, okay? And this is something that you do with a brush tool, and you need to read about this. I've got it, it's part of the chapter that's assigned for you to read, and it's real important that you learn how to do it. It might be in this week, it might be in next week's folder, I can't quite remember, but Only do this if you feel comfortable with it. It's not required. It's just an option for this week's assignment. Okay, this button right here, it says Add Vector Mask. What this does, you see that it made a little box next to my icon on that layer. And you can see that the box is activated because it's got a little white line around it. And what this allows me to do is I'm actually going to paint black paint in this little box. And where I've painted black paint, it's going to make it look like I'm erasing the picture, but I'm really not. Okay, I'm going to get my paintbrush. Which one of these is the paintbrush? I was using pencil last night. Okay, and for starters, I'm going to let the paintbrush be at 100%. Now, there's only two paint colors that will work when you're working on the mask. Black, which is going to make it look like you're erasing pixels, and white, which is going to make it look like you're bringing them back. At 100%, look what happens. Let me make my brush a little bigger so you can see it. Okay, first of all, you see a little black line right here, okay? And you see where I dragged it across, and I have apparently erased everything in that brush's path. I really haven't done anything at all to the photograph. This is called lossless editing. Lossless editing, okay? So I have not damaged my original picture at all. I've just blocked it out, okay? I went too far. I don't like that. That was a mistake. I'm just going to hit Command Z on my undo, another one that you need to memorize. And I want a much more subtle effect than what I got with that. I'm going to come to my opacity, and I'm going to change my brush opacity to, let's say 20, 30, let's go with 25%. Okay, I always like to go kind of low on the opacity and then keep going back over it. I'm having trouble seeing today. There we go. Right about in there. Okay. So here's my brush. I can change the size of the brush by either clicking this little arrow right here. There's a slider bar to change the size. Hardness, you can either have a very hard-edged brush, which is going to make a line that's not fuzzy on the edges. I do not want that. For this type of masking, when I'm working with a photograph, I don't want a hard edge. I want a soft edge so that the effect is subtle. So I always have the hardness at 0. There's lots and lots and lots of options down here. Don't let them distract you. Just ignore them for now. And you can just either use the slider bar to make your brush bigger or smaller, or the way I prefer to do it is if you look at your keyboard, look at the letter P, and next to it are a bracket, a left and a right bracket. The right bracket makes the brush bigger, the left bracket makes the brush smaller, and that's my preferred way of doing it. And when I'm doing something like this, I usually like to have the brush fairly big. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap and drag a little bit. I'm not going to get in there and scribble like this. This is not a crayon set, okay? I'm going to make strokes. I'm going to click and drag and release my mouse, click and drag and release my mouse. It's only going to do it once with the mouse button pushed down, and then you have to release and come back over it. And the reason I'm having to come back over it is because I've got my opacity set at only 20%. And so I'm kind of selectively coming in here, and I just want to see a little more of her face, but I don't want to overdo this either, you know, because I still want to have this effect. I still want most of this to look like it did already. And so I just want to in a few areas, you know, maybe so I can see her costume just a little bit more, um, you know, something like that. And maybe I'm thinking, oh, gee, you know, I think I went too far right here. I almost completely erased everything, and I really wanted to still have some, you know, lights covering her face right here. Well, this is where I can kind of selectively undo what I just did, and I can use my white paint to reverse what I did with my black paint. Now, if you look over here, you can see um, that I've got these little black smudges, and let me turn off the layer with the girl for a minute. This is what I've done. I've kind of, in a very subtle way, made certain areas less opaque, okay? But I think I went too far right here. I want to bring some of that back. I can think about my white paint. I just clicked, this is just like an Illustrator. You can trade the background and the foreground kind of the way you would trade the stroke and the fill by clicking this little guy. You've always got two colors that you can work with in Photoshop at any given time. And the one that's in front is called your foreground color, and that's the one you're going to actually be using. And you can use white, and I still have my opacity set at 25%, and I'm just bringing a little bit of it back. And so, you know, it's like, okay, I just want, you know, to bring a little bit more of it back. And that's really about it. Okay, so this couldn't really be easier, and I really didn't put a whole lot more thought into it than what I just did. Instead of doing one and putting a whole lot of thought into it, I did 5 or 6 of these and decided which one I liked the best, and that's what I would like for you to do. Instead of taking one and trying to wrestle with it until it's doing exactly what you want it to do 4, 5, 6 of them very quickly. And 1 or 2 of them will probably stand out to you as being better than the rest. Those are the ones you want to go back and tweak, okay? The ones that you know you just don't have that great of a feeling about, don't beat them to death. Just set them aside, okay? Last thing we're going to do is save our work. Oh, I wanted to point another thing out to you. When I save my work, okay, I'm going to do a save as. It's going to automatically change this. This cannot remain a JPEG. Okay, JPEGs can't have 2 layers. JPEGs can only have 1 layer. So it's automatically going to save it as a Photoshop. File, save as. I'm going to give it a name. And since you're going to be submitting 2 of these, a black and white and a color, why don't we do it this way? You've got your little folder here. Why don't we name it 03 BW for black and white? And notice that it came up automatically with Photoshop as an option. And there we go. And that's it. So I'll do a color one in the next video, and that's it.